What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the archives. Today, I've found myself in Jolton, Tennessee. And as you can see surrounding me is all arcade games. So we're going to take you back in time. We're going to show you these machines. We're going to show you how they work on them. And we have a surprise for you of where all these machines go in the end. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and let's get a tour. Alright guys, so we've entered the arcade and he's going to give us a tour of some of the machinery, and he's going to be telling us a little bit about these things because I don't know too much, but I want to know this history. Give us a grand tour.
Coming down the line, this kind of gets into a lot of the 90s pinballs. This isn't all of our 90s pinballs, but it's quite a few of them. Johnny Mnemonic, definitely better pinball than it was a movie. And it is a really cool pinball. It's got a magnetic hand, and you're grabbing a hold of a ball and trying to put it into a grid over to the right hand side up there in the top of the play field. So pretty cool stuff. Flintstones. Flintstones is from the Rosie era of movies from the 90s, and so instead of going with that back glass, we've got an alternate back glass with the cartoon guys and gals, which I think is better. So Rocky Bullwinkle, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, these are both Data East games from the early 90s. Very popular titles and shows and all that kind of stuff. Now we're getting into probably some of my favorite pinballs of all time. Indy Jones, probably one of my top favorite pinball machines. I've had this game for a long time.
What's his name? Henry Jones Jr.
Like Indiana.
We named the dog Indiana.
These games, this era of games are getting so expensive now. The average person is hard pressed to be able to afford some of these games. But Indy Jones, I got it for $900 at a yard sale about 16 years ago or so.
Wow.
And today it's probably, as it sets, it's probably worth low 20s.
Wow.
Something like that. That's insane to me.
When you bought it, did it come with the sword?
Did not come with the sword. That's something that we added. The company made those, and one of the things in pinball these days is toppers, and people like to put things on top of them that go with the games. And here's a good example of some of the stuff that we do for the hobby. We do a lot of this plating. Of course, you can see my kids have been playing here a whole lot. But we do the brass, the black nickel, we do the exchanges on the guns where you can send your gun in, and we have them already done. Usually try to keep this particular gun in black, nickel, brass, or chrome. And then wire forms, same thing, the wire ramps. We do a lot of Indiana Jones wire forms in brass for people, and so that's a pretty non-stop thing. Another one of my favorite games, Addams Family. A lot of the serious pinballers will say it's too simple of a game, but I love the game and I don't really care what they say.
Showtime!
And this is actually the gold version. This is the limited version. They made 22,000 of these games, but then they made the last 1,000 were the gold. And it's got the little plaque on the front of it that numbers it and all those things. Bought this from a customer who needed to buy side rails for it that were damaged. His wife's dad was an operator, had bought this game and kept it in their home and never routed it.
Oh, wow.
It's what we call home use only. And so it's a great game. Usually they have a lot of wear around the mansion, even around the buttons. Normally it's all white, in these areas, and it's not. And this is all original, other than it has our newer plating on it, which looks a lot better. Theater Magic.
You have the magic. Do you have the magic?
Another great, also a home use game. Very glad to have it. I love this game. Does some really cool stuff with magnets and you know, to kind of make you feel like you're seeing some magic tricks while you're playing the game, how it grabs the ball, especially the spinning trunk, and how it works with the game and everything. We do a lot of plating for these things. A lot of people brass these. I haven't had a chance to do ours, which is kind of silly because we are the people that do that. But yeah.
So with these 90 ones that you're kind of showing us as we go along, would you say you would start your collection with this? Let's say that somebody new is starting to get into this. Would you recommend one of these or an older one?
If you have the money, I recommend these.
Okay.
You know, you're gonna get entry level on what I call WPC machines, which are 90s Bally Williams machines, like these games right here. The entry level games that are not as popular maybe as some of these games are $4,000 or $5,000 or so for a decent one. If you start getting nice, even on those entry levels, they're getting $6,000 and $7,000 now. Gotcha. And these games are all getting a lot of these titles: Theater, Adams, Medieval, Attack. A lot of these games you can't touch for 10 or 12. You know, is what it takes to get them.
Huh. I think most people with this niche, they're expecting to spend a little money, obviously.
Absolutely. So. This is definitely not a poor man's hobby, especially these days. When I got into this, they were not as expensive as they are now, and hence part of the blessing that I have been able to purchase and own a lot of these games, and still own them, as I've held on to them for many years. Yeah. The ones that I've liked, and sometimes ones that I have truly believed this game will probably be worth more money as time goes on, and see them a little bit as investment as well. A lot of people say you shouldn't do that with collectibles. I don't really care what other people say. The thing I love about owning these games is not getting to say that I have them, not showing them off. I enjoy other people enjoying them, and so that's where I get my most enjoyment out of this. Cool. Two big titles: Medieval.
Bow to the kingdom.
Two games, and actually the games on either side of them, the Indianapolis 500 and the Bonsai Run, all belongs to a late friend of mine, Mike Chestnut. Mike actually did the plating for the hobby before me, and I bought Attack from him when he was still with us, and then after his passing, I purchased the other three from his dad, along with a Nitro Ground Shaker that he and I both kind of just have always had an affinity for. But Mike restored both of these games. These games, funny enough, the designer is the same on both of these games, and the basic layout of these games is the exact same shots on each thing. It's just kind of a different theme. You're blowing up a castle, you're blowing up a spaceship.
It's Attack from Mars. Watch as the people of Earth defend our precious planet. Yes, as they do the unthinkable, taking the fight all the way to Mars.
But the shots are the same, and yet these are two of the most popular pinballs of all time. Indy 500 was Mike's favorite game. I love that game. That was a home use game that I believe he got, I forget where he got it from, but it is beautiful, and it's a great game. All original artwork on the cabinet. And there was different artwork given to some of those cabinets. That's the all red artwork, which is nice, and it's nice to not see it faded, because the reds fade real bad on the art, on the original art on a lot of these cabinets over the years. These have been redone, both of these. This is also a home use game, this Bonsai Run. Also just a beautiful example of that in a game that's already not often seen. It has the double play fields where you're playing up top and the bottom, and kind of a tough game to master, and I'm still not its master, but I am its owner, and that's really cool.
Yeah. So I guess my next question, you have 90s. What is the earliest game you have here?
That's going to be one of the electromechanical machines. I'm not sure which one exactly is probably the oldest one right now. I'm gonna guess maybe Trail Drive or Touchdown, but I may be wrong. want to say that those are around 1965.
Okay.
Ish, but I'm probably wrong on that. They might even be early 70s.
Now, do you know, I guess being a pinball guy, arcade guy, when did pinball really get big, or when did it really start? Like, when did the first machine come out?
Pinball really took off. You know, the term even pinball, if you go back and look up, you know, some of what we call the ancient machines around here, is that you'll see these really old, smaller games. They don't have a back box, but it's the same idea. You shoot a ball out, and then it's falling down through these actual pins. That are almost, imagine nails all over the playfield, and they're kind of making mazes and parts or whatever, and you're trying to get a ball into certain things. And that's really the game. And so the game was all in the shooting, and you could nudge it a little bit, which nudging is a big part of pinball. You can't nudge too much because you tilt it and then you lose your ball. But you know, on those, not the case. And so yeah, that's the earliest stuff. A game called Humpty Dumpty was the first game that someone had the idea to put flippers in.
Huh.
And so that's when, you know, and it's not laid out like we know pinball with the two at the bottom, you know, doing what they're doing. It was different than that even. But the idea that you could begin to control parts of the game, and it was no longer, you know, necessarily, and even the early ones weren't necessarily games of chance, but more of an actual game of skill. Pinball kind of got thrown to the dogs a little bit historically.
New York City completes a roundup of thousands of pinball machines, each valued at about $100.
It was believed that by many that it was they were gambling devices when they were not gambling devices. Recent movies that have even come out about guys like Roger Sharp, who helped kind of save pinball, so to speak, even literally appearing before Congress to help, you know, be an advocate for the hobby, the business as a whole, that it was a game of skill. Literally playing a pinball in front of Congress to show that it was a game of skill. Roger has been a great part of our hobby and our history for a long time. But anyway, you know, the funny thing is that even still today, there are states that have not pulled out the laws that pinball is still illegal.
Really?
And they may still be illegal, but they're running pinballs and nobody cares now. You know, but some of those laws are still on the books, and in some states, some of those laws were just recently removed from those states too. So that's kind of an interesting part of the history of pinball too.
That's what I like to. This is the stuff I wanted to know. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
So there's like I said, there's lots of movies out there that talk about that stuff. You know, I'm not going to pretend to be the expert. I know enough to be dangerous, but yeah, it's these are the electromechanical games. You know, they got the old score reels. There's no motherboards in these games. It's all mechanical. Everything operates mechanically with lots of switches and motors and things like that are activated by switches and electricity, of course, but not many people work on electromechanical games these days. These are the ones I call bing bangs because of the chimes. But we're some of the only folks that will mess with these games these days. Because a lot of times these games belonged to a family. It was a family member's game, or it was a family's game that they want to keep in their family, and they want to let their kids now enjoy it and that kind of thing too.
Cool. Well, now that we've done pinball, I see around here you got some arcade games. Show us some of these. What is this? What is the Holy Grail? What am I looking at?
The games that I like are actually probably more on the other side. If we walk around, there are some cool games here. iRobot's a really cool game. That's a very rare game that Atari made. That's actually considered to be the first three-dimensional game. It uses what's called a Hall effect joystick, which allows you to feel like you're going into the game. Up and before that, if you think about games like Pac-Man or Defender or Donkey Kong or whatever, it's a single dimension, it's a flat, you're working a maze. Or you kind of got the games like the NES generation, and I have a lot of those games in our Play Choice 10 machine over there, but those games are more of the scrolling, games where you scroll your way through, think about Super Mario Brothers and things like that. Games that I love personally, there's lots of classics here. This is a Tron we restored years ago for someone, and then later they decided to sell it many years later, and I always admired the work we actually did on this machine so much that when he put it back up for sale, I talked to him and he said, hey, I'd love, if you'd like to have it back, I'd love for you to have it back. And when the lights are out and the black lights making your joystick glow and all that kind of stuff, lots of lights in there. It's got 4 light fixtures in a Tron, which is kind of cool. Mad Planets and Bosconian are probably 2 of my favorite arcade games, not as well known. The Mad Planets is a little tired, probably needs a little restoration. It's all original right now, but I have another one to do. We're going to do probably both of them at the same time, and then we'll keep one and sell the other. The Bosco is fully restored, or a really nice original. I think it actually might be a really nice original, but it came from a collector out of California. If you don't look at the coin door, I'll show you this. This is a white Galaga. Galagas were black for the most part. Actually, it was actually Bosconian. It's next to it here that we just looked at. That is the same cabinet, and they're very similar harnesses and similar setups. The boards were very similar on these games. Bosconian didn't do so good, and the games were coming and going really fast in that era of the early 80s, and real quickly things were outdated and some of the tech would get outdated really fast. And anyway, Bosconian didn't do well making money wise, and it got to where the company was stuck with a bunch of them they had built and they couldn't sell them. Galaga was still so popular because it had just gained such a cult following that they turned around and said, well, hey, let's turn the leftover Bosconians into Galagas. And so that's where you get a white Galaga from. This Galaga and this Miss Pac-Man were bought together by an operator who took them home and did not route them. It's also what we call still home use only games, and I was really interested in these games just because they were really nice. They came out of Pittsburgh. And then of course you can't have a Miss Pac without a Pac, so we've got Pac-Man over here. It's all original, and it's not the nicest Pac in the world, but we've had some really nice ones over the years, but you can't keep them all. So I love Omega Race. This is a vector game that Midway made, black and white vector. I love the Cockpit Games. I love sitting inside. To me, it's like memories of being a kid again, to get to sit inside these games. I remember as a kid going to arcades when we would especially go out of town, because I lived in a small town in Kentucky that didn't have a lot of arcade games. I remember going, and when we would go out of town and there would be an arcade, going and sitting inside games, and my parents weren't keen on me wasting their money on the games, but I could go and pretend, and getting to sit inside of one of these things as a kid was a big part of that for me. And so a lot of collectors hate cockpits. I do my own thing. And so I have the Star Wars cockpit, the Omega Race, the pole position. I have a Missile Command cockpit that's not here. It's at my house in the basement. I just haven't wanted to move it yet because it's such a bear to move.
So one of my questions is, I guess it was a big trend to have arcades and things growing up. I remember seeing them in malls. I remember seeing them, basically there was actual places for arcades, and I feel like they died out. And now they're starting to come back. Why? What happened?
It's a generational thing. I think part of that is arcades in general do well in places where there's walking traffic, and malls have done what malls have done. Most malls have tanked. They've not done well historically in the last several years. And so, but anybody that has had an arcade in the past would say, a mall is a great place to have an arcade then, because you had walking traffic, you had people, you had a family, and the kid doesn't want to go shopping, and so give them some quarters and send them in. It was the 80s. We sent our, we as kids were out riding our bikes all over town, and when was it time to come home? When the street lights come on, or when it's dark. We didn't worry about stuff so much back then. We also grew up thinking that quicksand was going to be some big deal to, have to figure out, and we were going to have to navigate quicksand all our life, but that didn't turn out to be the case either. But yeah, and so I think generationally what's happened is that generation has gotten older now, and they do want to revisit, the arcade, but where is it? Well, they're not going to a mall anyway, so it's not going to be in a mall. And so what's happened is because of the age of those people, now they go to, where are they going to go to places? Well, they want to go to places where they can maybe get something to eat or get something to drink, or whatever. In the case of like East Side, it's a little different animal. Even in Nashville, to my knowledge, the only place that's a music venue, bowling, dining, has an arcade as well. The music venue piece of that, I think, is key. But yeah, and so a lot of what we call barcades have sprung up, and so we have barcades. We have pinball bars. A good friend of mine owns another pinball bar in East Nashville, No Quarter. But then we have free play arcades too. A friend of mine, Jason Wilson, owns Game Galaxy out in Smyrna, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. He has 450 machines there. You pay like $15 and go play all day. You'll spend $15 at Dave & Buster's in like 5 minutes. Yes. And yeah, you can get some cheese fries with it, but whatever. Eat the cheese fries before you go, and spend the day and have fun getting to play stuff you've never seen before. That's my take. But yeah, places like Eastside Bowler have become very popular because of the generational people wanting to be a part of that. And the other two here, these are the two lowest production games that they've made that were color vectors, Major Havoc and Quantum. And Quantum's a very simple game where you're really technically just drawing circles around stars and things in the galaxy, so to speak, and while trying not to touch certain things while you're doing that. And the faster you can do that, and the more of them that you can do that in at the same time, the more points you get, and the faster you proceed through the levels. This Quantum, and if you look at it, has just white sides. That may be kind of hard to see, but it has white sides. It actually did not have the art on the control panel originally, and it has a power switch right here. This is all because this Quantum is an Atari prototype Quantum. This is not one of the 200 that they made. They only made 200 Quantums to begin with that are known, and then this was actually one of their test pieces. And so again, Scott Evans shared that with us and has allowed us to have that, and I'm very grateful to own it. I wanted a Quantum anyway, and then he put that up for sale, and at the time I felt like the price was, it was equally priced with a regular Quantum, which some people would say, oh, I don't want that, it doesn't have the art on the sides or whatever. To me, that's history, and I love that. I love that part of that. So
so it looks like this one here is kind of your working roll. Row
starting to be. This is part of the working non-working row of ones that we haven't messed with in the shop yet. This Monster Bash is one that we're in the middle of restoring. One of the things about us restoring a game is if it's a high-end enough game and we're going to restore it, I like to go ahead and pull the metal from the playfield and chrome it, since that's part of what we do as a business. And to me, it just makes that game that much nicer. Gives it a little extra something. And so you'll see another game out here in a minute that we're in the middle of, a couple of that we're in the middle of working on. But yeah, bought this off a friend. He got into it, and then he had to move, and he already actually had bought the new version of these. They make new Monster Bashes now, and he said, "Hey, you're the only one crazy enough I know to come buy a game in pieces. Will you come buy this thing?" He knew I wanted a Monster Bash, and I said, "Yeah," and so we went and got it.
This is the original Monsters, huh? Mm-hmm. Look, even the Invisible Man's on there. Just kidding. So if you have a game and you're needing it restored, there's the website right here, pinballplating.com, just so that way you don't misspell it. He does great work. I mean, just seeing some of the work and some of the organization this guy has, it's incredible. So, Pinballplatingcom.
And HotRodArcade.com.
There you go. So, if you're in need of a machine, you're needing a part, if you're watching this channel because you love this hobby, or you're trying to get in this hobby, give this guy a look. He's in Nashville. And if you love Nashville, just come on down. You're probably trying to come over here.
Who doesn't love
anyways.
Nashville?
Right. Everybody comes here, so. Alright guys, now that you've seen the shop tour, we're going to show you where all the hard work pays off. But not just all the old equipment, he actually has some newer machines. And today, we've made our way to East Side Bowl, and they're having a tournament today, which we're going to capture.
We're going to have our third Thursday tournament tonight. It happens every third Thursday of every month. Here, you are more than welcome to join us anytime. We'd love to have you. Tonight, got a good friend of mine, Chris Davenport, that's here shooting for his YouTube channel. He's actually gonna play with us, first pinball tournament for him. I know we got some other first timers tonight. Glad to have you guys. Want to make mention, he may ask some questions because he's just trying to kind of understand a little bit about this whole pinball tournament community.
Don't tell him anything.
So the first game was junk. Second game did a little bit better. Third game was, we're getting there. We're figuring out the ropes.
I played terrible.
It's getting intense. So we're on our third game here. Now, I completely suck, but Chris is actually picking up speed here. So I just want to explain how bad I suck. This is my score. Look at all those. We're going to try out my favorite game, which is Stranger Things. Alright guys, there you have it for another episode of the Archives. I hope you learned so many things about pinball. It's been an awesome experience. I can't thank Chris enough for giving me the tour, as well as showing all of his machines and stuff downtown at East Side Bowl. If you're able to, and you're looking to get into the pinball world, make sure you check out HotRodArcade.com and even Pinballplating.com. And if you're in the Nashville area and you've got nothing to do, this is the place to be, so EastSideBowl.com. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next episode.